One ruler accidentally killed his own son in a fit of rage. Another turned an entire country into his personal money-making machine. One built a system of fear so powerful that people were afraid to speak inside their own homes. And one became so terrifying that entire cities surrendered without a fight simply because they heard he was coming. History is filled with powerful leaders. But these rulers didn't just seek power. They weaponized fear, and the consequences were felt by millions. Today, we're counting down the top 5 most ruthless rulers in history. But be warned, the further we move up this list, the darker the stories become. Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that a single person controls your freedom, your property, your future, and even whether you live or die. Throughout history, countless kings, emperors, and dictators have ruled vast territories. Some inspired loyalty, some brought prosperity, but others ruled through terror. Their names became symbols of fear. Entire cities trembled when their armies approached. Families disappeared overnight because of their orders. Millions suffered under their relentless pursuit of power. And if you're fascinated by the rise and fall of empires, notorious dictators, forgotten wars, and the darkest moments in human history, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. New history videos are released regularly, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Today, we're exploring 5 rulers whose cruelty became legendary. These are not simply men who fought wars. These are rulers whose actions left scars that lasted generations. And by the end of this video, you'll discover why the man at number 1 was feared so much that his name still sends chills through history centuries after his death. Let's begin. Number 5. Ivan the Terrible. When someone earns the nickname the Terrible, you know their story won't be pleasant. But Ivan IV of Russia wasn't born a monster. In fact, his early life reads like the beginning of a tragedy. His father died when he was just 3 years old. His mother died a few years later. Powerful nobles fought each other for influence while the young prince watched from the sidelines. He grew up surrounded by betrayal, manipulation, and violence. Imagine spending your childhood never knowing who you could trust. Those experiences shaped the ruler Ivan would eventually become. When he took full control of Russia, he initially showed promise. He introduced reforms, strengthened the government, expanded Russian territory. Many believed Russia was entering a new era. But power has a way of revealing what's hidden inside people. And over time, Ivan became increasingly paranoid. He saw enemies everywhere. Friends became suspects. Loyal supporters became traitors. The fear of losing power slowly consumed him. To crush opposition, Ivan created a feared force known as the Oprichniki. Think of them as a combination of secret police and death squad. Dressed entirely in black, they rode through towns spreading terror. Their loyalty belonged only to Ivan. If he suspected someone of betrayal, the consequences were often deadly. Thousands were arrested. Thousands were tortured. Thousands disappeared. But perhaps the darkest chapter came in 1570. Ivan became convinced that the wealthy city of Novgorod planned to betray him. What followed was a nightmare. For weeks, executions and torture ravaged the city. Men, women, and children suffered under brutal punishments. The city was devastated. Yet the most shocking victim of Ivan's rage would be someone much closer to home, his own son. During an argument, Ivan struck him with a staff. The injury proved fatal. According to historical accounts, Ivan immediately realized what he had done. The powerful ruler who feared losing everything had destroyed his own heir with his own hands. When Ivan died in 1584, Russia was larger than ever before, but was also traumatized. His legacy would forever be tied to fear, bloodshed, and paranoia. And this is only the beginning of our list. Number 4. Leopold II. When people think of ruthless rulers, they often imagine conquerors on horseback or dictators giving fiery speeches. Leopold II was different. His cruelty was quieter, far away, and hidden from much of the world. Leopold was the king of Belgium, but his greatest source of wealth came from Central Africa. specifically the Congo. In the late 19th century, European nations were scrambling to claim territory across Africa. Leopold presented himself as a humanitarian, a man supposedly bringing civilization and progress. The reality was very different. The Congo became his personal possession, not Belgium's. His. Imagine owning an area larger than several countries combined. Now imagine treating its people as tools for profit. The region was rich in rubber, and rubber was becoming incredibly valuable. Leopold wanted production to increase, no matter the human cost. Workers faced impossible quotas. Villages that failed to meet demands faced punishment. Families were torn apart. Communities lived in constant fear. As reports slowly emerged, the world began learning about the horrors taking place. Missionaries documented abuses. Journalists exposed atrocities. Photographs revealed suffering that many people could hardly believe. What made Leopold particularly disturbing wasn't rage or battlefield violence. It was distance. Many of the terrible actions carried out in the Congo happened while he enjoyed life thousands of miles away in Europe. Eventually, international pressure forced changes. But by then, immense damage had already been done. Today, Leopold remains one of history's most controversial monarchs, a ruler whose pursuit of wealth left a devastating human legacy. Number 3. Joseph Stalin. Imagine living in a country where saying the wrong thing could make you disappear. Not next week, not next month, tonight. That was the reality for millions under Joseph Stalin. When Stalin rose to power in the Soviet Union, he inherited a nation still recovering from revolution and civil war. By the time he died, the Soviet Union had become one of the most powerful countries on earth. But that transformation came at a terrible cost. Stalin believed absolute control was necessary. Anyone who threatened that control became an enemy. Political rivals vanished. Military officers disappeared. Government officials were arrested. Ordinary citizens became targets. One of the most terrifying aspects of Stalin's rule was uncertainty. People never knew who would be accused next. A neighbor, a co-worker, a friend, or perhaps themselves. Millions were sent to labor camps known as gulags. Many prisoners endured brutal conditions, extreme weather, and exhausting work. For countless people, survival itself became a daily challenge. Then came the Great Purge, a campaign designed to eliminate perceived enemies. Trials were held. Confessions were extracted. Executions followed. Fear became woven into everyday life. Imagine hearing a knock on your door late at night and wondering whether you would ever see your family again. For many Soviet citizens, that fear was very real. Yet despite the repression, Stalin also transformed the Soviet Union into an industrial giant. This contradiction makes him one of history's most complex figures. A leader who helped build a superpower while simultaneously creating one of the most feared systems of control the modern world has ever seen. Number 2. Adolf Hitler. Few names in history are as universally recognized as Adolf Hitler, and few names are associated with as much destruction. When Hitler became Germany's leader in 1933, he promised renewal, economic recovery, national pride, a brighter future. Many Germans embraced those promises. But hidden beneath them was an ideology built on hatred and racial supremacy. Once in power, Hitler moved quickly. Opposition party were eliminated. Critics were silenced. The government tightened its control over society. Then came expansion. One nation after another fell under Nazi control. Europe was pushed toward catastrophe. The result was World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history. Entire cities were destroyed. Millions of soldiers lost their lives. Millions of civilians suffered unimaginable hardship. But Hitler's most horrific crime was the Holocaust, a systematic campaign of persecution and murder that targeted Jews and other groups. Concentration camps became centers of suffering. Families were torn apart. Communities disappeared. Human lives were reduced to numbers. By the end of the war, Europe lay devastated. The empire Hitler dreamed of building had collapsed. Facing inevitable defeat, he ended his own life in Berlin in 1945. His rule lasted only 12 years. Yet the destruction unleashed during those years changed the course of history forever. Most lists would place Hitler at number 1. But our final entry ruled centuries earlier and inspired fear on a scale almost impossible to imagine. Number 1. Genghis Khan. Imagine hearing that an army is approaching. Not just any army. An army so feared that cities often surrendered before the first battle even began. That was the reputation of Genghis Khan. Born as Temujin on the harsh Mongolian steppes, his early life was filled with hardship. His father was poisoned. His family was abandoned. Survival was uncertain. Many people would have been broken by such circumstances. Temujin was not. Through determination, intelligence, and military brilliance, he united rival tribes that had spent generations fighting one another. Then he turned outward. What followed was one of the most extraordinary military campaigns in human history. The Mongol armies moved with incredible speed. They adapted quickly. They struck unexpectedly. And they punished resistance mercilessly. Word spread across continents. Cities that surrendered often survived. Cities that resisted sometimes faced complete destruction. Fear became one of Genghis Khan's most effective weapons. Long before psychological warfare became a military term, he understood its power. Stories of Mongol victories traveled faster than the armies themselves. And those stories often convinced enemies to surrender without fighting. The empire he created stretched across vast regions of Asia and Europe. At its height, it became the largest contiguous land empire ever assembled. Yet Genghis Khan remains a complicated figure. He promoted trade, protected merchants, encouraged merit over noble birth. These achievements helped shape the world in significant ways. But they do not erase the immense suffering caused during his conquests. For countless people, the arrival of the Mongols meant terror. And centuries later, his name remains one of the most feared in history. Power is one of the most dangerous forces in human history. In the hands of the right leader, it can build nations, create prosperity, and inspire greatness. But in the hands of the wrong leader, it could destroy millions of lives. Ivan the Terrible ruled through paranoia. Leopold, too, pursued wealth at a devastating human cost. Stalin turned fear into a governing system. Hitler plunged the world into catastrophe. And Genghis Khan built an empire whose reputation terrified entire civilizations. Their stories are separated by centuries. Yet they all teach the same lesson. When power has no limits, ordinary people often suffer the consequences. Now I want to hear from you. Who do you think was the most ruthless ruler in history? And is there someone you believe deserve a place on this list? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with fellow history lovers. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.